What's going on, guys? MLS Aces Podcast, episode 230. This is your host, Tom Sweezy. This is not Wednesday, normal drop day for the podcast. It is Thursday. Sorry about being a day late on that. Things got caught up. I got caught up, but the podcast is out this week. I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode with Charlotte FC midfielder Brand Bronico. If you haven't, go check that out. I thought it was a really nice conversation, really good conversation. Got a lot of positive feedback from around the Charlotte FC community around that. If you haven't, also, episode before that was me and Sam Stachel of The Athletic. If you haven't, go check that out. Great conversation about what was going on around the MLS transfer window, USMNT transfer window, all of that jazz. This week, though, we're talking this week. We're not talking last week, but I mean, we can. If you missed it, go check it out. But this week, I am talking with a very special guest, a guest that I'm surprised we haven't done more with, a guest that I want to do more with in the future, and I hope he wants to do more as well. Blake Eshelman, host of MLS Gone Wild. Great conversation. I think I mentioned it a few times during the interview as well. It was something that, again, should have happened way sooner. Glad that Blake and I can hop on the same podcast, chat a little. Aiden Morris, Columbus Crew, DC United, MLS in general, surprises of the 2022 season, all of that fun stuff. It was a great conversation. I'm excited for you guys to hear that one. Check that one out. And if you haven't, I'm sure if you're listening to this, watching this, you guys know MLS Gone Wild. Go check out that podcast. Blake does a great job and the guests he gets. And I think this week, as of drop day, he has a conversation with Chris Mueller coming out pretty soon. So go check that out. But let's talk about some MLS news and notes before we get to my conversation between me and Blake of MLS Gone Wild. San Jose Earthquakes. We have some news. We have some life coming out of San Jose. A brand new manager is coming to Major League Soccer. Well, he's not brand new to Major League Soccer, but he's coming brand new to San Jose. Former FC Dallas manager, current USMNT assistant Luchi Gonzalez has been hired as the next manager for the San Jose Earthquakes, and he will take over after the World Cup in Qatar as he finishes up his responsibilities with the U.S. men's national team. Sorry, that means no Landon Donovan as the next manager of the San Jose Earthquakes, but I do like the Luchi move. I like the Luchi move for a few reasons. I think one, San Jose has one of the best young academy classes coming up in the in the U.S. kind of soccer system right now. Luchi Gonzalez, as we know, was a leader within the Dallas kind of youth system, and he knows how to work with youth well. I think that could be something that pairs up very nicely to allow San Jose to have an influx of develop talent from within, develop talent from the academy to the second team to the first team, and allow for youth to flourish in San Jose. Again, especially with the youth classes coming up that could potentially be better than the one of Dallas and Red Bulls and RSL right now. So we'll see how that works out in the long term. I'm kind of not too hot on it because I really do feel like if Luchi, for whatever reasons, knock on wood, and I don't want this to happen, I will say that again, do not want this to happen. I'm rooting for Luchi to do a good job and think he can do a good job, but it feels like if Luchi Gonzalez, for whatever reason, does not work out with San Jose, it does not feel like an MLS gig is in his future for a very, very long time. Maybe the Jason Kreis effect at that point. I know Jason Kreis now has had a little bit of rumors maybe in the past few years around his name, but Luchi, this seems kind of like his final shot for an MLS head coaching gig. Rooting for him. I want to see San Jose do well. I want to see the talent and the youth that San Jose has right now do well. So I think that he could be the right man for the job. Obviously, that we chatted about last week, all of the incoming MLS transfers for fees coming over from other clubs across Europe and Liga MX are done. No more incoming transfers allowed unless it is on a free agency deal, but that does not mean that there are not windows still open in Europe and in Mexico, and that means players can leave. So a lot of players have left Major League Soccer over the course of the past week. Charlotte FC's first ever signing, Sergio Ruiz, is headed to the Segunda Division in Spain. Alex Matan is leaving the Crew on loan to go to Romania. Caio Alexandre is going to Brazil from the Vancouver Whitecaps. Michael Estrada, who we chatted a little bit about last week in kind of my intro chatting about Christian Benteke coming to DC. Michael Estrada is now done on his loan to DC United. He'll go back to Liga MX, and I think he's already on a second club there. Arnor Ini Travaston, he has mutually terminated his contract with the Revs. He's going back to Iceland. Inter Miami waive center back Jairo Quinteros. Nothing like over the top as far as anything that's going to rattle the MLS landscape for the rest of the 2022 season, but just notable players and names to kind of just give their love to. Thank you for being in MLS. Hope you guys do well on loan and come back and whatever it may be. I feel like the only other major kind of transfer news is the Red Bulls picked up Tyler Pasher off waivers. He got waived by Houston last week, so happy Tyler is staying in MLS. Huge fan of him, and I think maybe could be a nice depth piece to the Red Bulls. I think, he's had his moments in Major League Soccer and would like to see him produce well wherever he goes. And unfortunately, it's the Red Bulls, so I have to, I guess, root for him in that sense. But it's all good. It's all good. Tyler will do well in Northern New Jersey. The last kind of huge piece of news that happened over the past week, obviously the MLS All-Star game happened last week. It was an absolute fantastic event from what I can see over the internet. I was not able to go to Minnesota. Just obviously a lot of stuff going on for me if you don't know about stuff in my personal life, but it seemed from a distance great. MLS Today with David Goss was great. The live recording of Extra Time was great. I think that's something that both those outfits should kind of look into a little bit more in doing, because the conversations were great. The call up, I thought, had a very nice week as well from MLS All-Star game in Minnesota. I'm trying to think if anything else. Between clean sheets with Cheyenne, she was out there. She was creating some very good content, a lot of good TikToks and Instagram reels there. I'm trying to think. Eli Lesser, he's out there. He's raising trophies with Quincy Amarikwa. The Cooligans were out there. They were, flaunting their brand new NYCFC championship rings. NYCFC, I'm still waiting for mine. I'm sure it's in the mail. Sure, he didn't lose it. It's fine. But I think the main highlight of the MLS All-Star weekends, extended weekend, whatever you want to call it, is that the MLS All Stars beat the Liga MX All Stars 2-1. Goals came from Carlos Vela and Raul Ruiz-Diaz. Dane St. Clair, the hometown kid, winning the game MVP. So shout out to everyone. It was absolute, just overall another production event. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's fine. It was good. It was fun to watch from TV. I think the skills challenge was awesome. Hani Mukhtar finishing things off there. I'm excited about DC next year. I think DC's definitely obviously one closer to me, so maybe that means Tom Sweeze is on his way to DC United or DC just in general for an All-Star game next year. I would love it. A lot of people that, obviously you've heard me talk to in the past, are connected and around the DC area, would love to meet up with them as well there. A few teams that I want to quickly kind of just give my takes on as we're getting closer to the MLS Cup playoffs for sure. Two teams I'm worried about. Seattle Sounders. I'll start off one there. Seattle's worrying me. I know, right? CCL champions, deep roster, ton of youth, a ton of MLS experience, all that stuff, where you shouldn't be worried about Seattle, right? Seattle's not going to miss the playoffs, right? I mean, since the beginning of July, Seattle has played in 9 games, 3 wins, 0 draws, 6 losses, 8 goals scored, 12 goals against. The goals for, maybe not the worry, but the goals against is definitely the worry. There's been moments where a lot of members of that back line just seem to forget how to defend. They just seem to make very easy mistakes, silly mistakes that are leading to easy goals from the opposition. And at the end of the day, 6 losses in the last month and a half or so. So very worried. I'm personally very worried about the Seattle Sounders. You like to think that at the end of the day, the talent will find its way, and that they'll at least sneak into a playoff spot. I think it's very possible because we've seen crazier things, but it's the Seattle Sounders, right? We can use that argument every single time, but just want to definitely raise the red flag there and say I am worried. I'm also worried about my guys, NYCFC, not about missing the playoffs or anything like that, but I am worried about them form-wise going into the playoffs. Obviously, since Nick Cushing has took over for Ronnie Dyla, it has not been the smoothest sailing. It has not been the best form that we have seen from the Citizens in their last 3 games. A 0-0 draw to Montreal, where I don't think they even had a shot on net, or a shot period, actually. A 3-2 loss to the Columbus Crew, a 3-2 loss to Inter Miami last week. And last time I checked, as of recording right now, they were tied 1-1 to Charlotte FC at quote unquote home. They're at Red Bull Arena. So not the best of run right now for NYCFC. Again, similar to Seattle, where there is so much quality and so much talent on this team that you like to think and hope that they figure it out. And I think that, again, NYCFC, they're making the playoffs. You like to think that they'll figure it out for a playoff run. Again, as an NYCFC fan, I think that they will. I think that they can. You just hope that they find their form sooner rather than later. Just quickly on the other side, actually, sorry, two more teams in the East that I want to chat about. TFC, not that I want to dive too deep onto them, but you've already seen the impact of what Insigne and Bernadeschi have brought to them. They make TFC fun to watch. I'm still a little hesitant on saying that they're going to make the playoffs. I want to say yes. I want to say that the Italian duo will push this team into the very, very bottom of the Eastern Conference playoff picture. And I think someone in Extra Time said it. I don't know who it was, but if you're a top of the Eastern Conference team and you're getting paired with TFC in the early few rounds of the playoffs, you don't want to play this team with Bernadeschi and Insigne on the other side. You just don't. And it's going to make it for a very fun Eastern Conference playoff race. But TFC still has some holes that I'm worried about, especially defensively. And then obviously right now atop the Eastern Conference, Philadelphia Union 6-1-1 in their last 8 games. They have a relatively easy schedule for the rest of the 2022 season. A few tough oppositions in there, but pretty much like the Union can win mostly every game that they're about to play for the rest of the 2022 season. I think that realistically, they're not going to win every game, but they realistically are going to be the favorites in every matchup that they have for the rest of the 2022 season. And I think at the end of the day, the Philadelphia Union are going to be top of the East. They're going to, this is going to be one of the best seasons in Philadelphia Union history. They're a dangerous team. They're a good team. They're a deep team. And I love everything about them right now. Let's go jump over to the West. Just want to talk about 3 teams real quick. Austin FC, 5 wins in their last 8. Druisi stays hot. I'm worried about their upcoming schedule because they have a lot of talented opponents in front of them. Minnesota, LAFC, Portland, Nashville, Seattle, RSL, and then Nashville again to kind of close out, a 7-game stretch. That's a pretty tough stretch. It's going to be a pretty telling stretch to see if Austin FC is going to be in that top 2, top 3 category in the West, or maybe are they looking at a realistic 5-6. I'm not completely sold on Austin FC, and that's not because I'm wearing a Dallas Burn sweatshirt this week. It's just I'm not. I think Druisi saves them a lot, and at the end of the day, it reminds me kind of 2020 Minnesota United, where it's just a 1 or 2 man show. Now, we haven't really seen the full edition of Austin FC's summer signings yet, so maybe that does change some things, but we'll see. I'm still thinking they're very good in the West. I just don't know if I'm going to call them that good at this point. FC Dallas, obviously Dallas Burn, shout out, just the Dallas Burn, because this is a sick ass sweatshirt that I have. But FC Dallas Burn, whatever you want to call them at this point, they bring in Du Bois and they get the dub. They had a big win over San Jose 4-1 this past weekend. Over their next 5 games, they have a tough schedule themselves: Philly, Nashville, RSL, Minnesota, and LAFC. Dallas right now, like, Austin FC is a good team. I can easily say that Austin FC is going to make the playoffs and they're going to be a force. Dallas right now, I think these next 5 games are very telling of if they're going to be top 3-4 team in the playoffs or if they miss the playoffs completely. Dallas is such a question mark to me. They have so much talent, and I think that they should be much better than what they are. Maybe Sebastian Lletget brings a little bit more balance, and maybe he can do that, and I hope he can for Dallas's sake. So I'm really interested to see their next 5 games, kind of what these results look like. And I think if you can realistically pick up 7 points, I think Dallas is easily a playoff team. I think you can beat Nashville. I think you can beat RSL, and I think you can get a draw somewhere between Minnesota, Philly. I'm not going to say LAFC. So I think if you can get 6 or 7 points, Dallas is probably feeling pretty good about themselves over the next 5 games. Speaking of Minnesota United, they have 1 loss in their last 9 games. Reynoso, Lod, Fragapane stay hot. Minnesota, I didn't think they'd be in the conversation for top 2 in the West, but they're there, and they're very good. They're very dangerous. Dane Sinclair's a winner in net. I have a lot of faith in Minnesota, even through all the injuries that they have, that they'll be one of the few final teams remaining in the 2022 MLS season. Lastly, LAFC. I mean, they're gonna break the points record. I think they easily can break the points record. Maybe one of the most talented and deepest teams we've seen. I know. Everyone loves LAFC. Everyone talks about LAFC. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a reason, right? Like, at the end of the day, you can just name Gareth Bale, Carlos Vela, Giorgio Chiellini. You can go down everyone else that they have, right? Like, you can go down Ilie Sanchez, Kellen Acosta, Maxime Crepeau, Jesus Murillo, Eddie Segura, Ryan Hollingshead, Diego Palacios, Quadro Opoku, Christian Arango. Like, there's so many more names that you can just say. At the end of the day, it's why LAFC is fun. It's why LAFC is top of the West and threatening to break the points record for an MLS season. And it's insane. Over the last 5 games in Major League Soccer action, they have 5 wins. I mean, like, it's incredible. 14 goals scored, 2 goals allowed. Over the last 5 games, if you include non-MLS action as well, 4 wins and a loss. That 1 loss came in a PK loss to Club America in Leagues Cup. 12 goals scored, 2 goals allowed. If you want to look at their last 15 games of MLS action, just MLS action alone, 11 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses, 14 goals allowed, and 31 goals scored. 31 goals in 15 games. If you want to look at the last 15 games in total action, again, including Leagues Cup and I think an Open Cup game in there, 11 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses, 13 goals allowed, and again, 31 goals scored. LAFC's on an absolute tear. They're dangerous. Again, I think, like I said, with Sam Stejskal, anything can happen. A random bounce can happen. A random Galaxy sneak into the playoffs, and El Tráfico domination of Galaxy over LAFC can happen. I'm not saying it will. We've just seen crazier things in the MLS Cup playoffs, but I won't bore you guys too much more about the news and notes, my opinions of everything and all of that stuff. I want you guys to sit back. I want you guys to enjoy, listen, whatever you're doing, to my conversation between me and Blake Eshelman, host of MLS Gone Wild. Again, if you guys haven't, whatever you're listening or watching this on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, whatever, subscribe, like, give us a review if you can. If you don't want to and you hate the podcast, then don't do it. You don't have to. I mean, I appreciate that as well. If you like it, then leave it. So thank you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week. I will talk to you guys next week. We are back with another episode of the MLS Aces Podcast. This is your host, Tom Sweezy, and this week I'm joined by a very special guest. This is a long-awaited, I think, collaboration of 2 very well-known MLS podcasts. Blake Eshelman of MLS Gone Wild. Blake, what's up, brother?
Not much, man. Just watching this U.S. Open Cup game. I like the fact that you called us well-known. That makes me feel good. And you also said my last name right, which a lot of my friends, coworkers, nobody does. And for this being our first time speaking, very impressed with you, Tom. But I'm doing good, man. Eshelman, you name it, man. I don't know. It's hard to butcher. It's like it's saying how it looks.
Like, I mean, I work in talent acquisition for the 9 to 5, so I speak with a lot of people from a lot of names. I mean, maybe I'm just getting good at it. I don't know, but I mean, whatever. You have an easy name to me, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, and I would like to thank you for having me on, Tom. Like you said, it's been a long time coming, and I'm really looking forward to this one.
So I think we can start things off by talking about your boys in the back. I mean, I see that banner flowing. That's a nice championship banner that way. I'll get my NYCFC one over here soon. No, but I mean, let's talk crew, right? Like, I mean, the easy storyline to start with is Cucho Hernandez. Like, how are you feeling, 1, as a crew fan, and then 2, like, tactically actually looking at the squad in professional manner? How's that looking?
So first and foremost, I'm excited to be a Crew fan. We went through a rough couple months at the beginning of the season, rough
Yeah.
March, rough April. Then we signed Cucho. There's a lot of things that happen in this 9-match unbeaten streak, right? Like we get rid of Giassi, that happened before that. We signed Jason Russell Rowe, who kind of filled the void up top a little bit. Eric Hurtado kind of stepped into that role. We also just signed Mo Farsi, so the Columbus Crew
Hmm.
doing good on the new business that's MLS Next Pro, signing these young guys and giving them an opportunity, seeing their quality, and then signing them to the first team. So I love that we're utilizing that resource that MLS has provided to us. So in that regard, I love that. We offloaded Miguel Berry to Wayne Rooney and DC United, and then we signed Cucho Hernandez, club record signing, $10 million, and he has not disappointed. He's hit the ground running in MLS, 4 matches in, I think, 90 minutes. He's the first player ever to score 4 goals in his first 90 minutes of play, first ever in MLS. Like that's crazy. And he came in a transfer window he was kind of overshadowed by the likes of Gareth Bale, Ache, and all these guys. And here we got this guy, Colombian international, who scored 5 goals for Watford in 2021, 2022. And like I said, hit the ground running. He's been a phenomenal acquisition for the Columbus Crew. The chemistry and connection that he has with Lucas Zelarayan is awesome to see. Lucas Zelarayan, one of the best playmakers in the league. He, so far in this season prior to Cucho coming, looked like, he lacked a strike partner. He looked like he didn't have the quality in front of him.
Yeah.
And he honestly didn't look happy at times. And since Cucho's been there, Zelarayan's assisted him 3 times. Cucho scored 4 goals. During the celebrations on all those goals, you can see almost the relief on Lucas Zelarayan's face and how happy he is to now have a strike partner like Cucho Hernandez. And just talking a little bit more about Cucho and his profile, like he scored 4 goals already. I touched on 4 very different goals. He scored a
Yeah.
1v1 breakaway goal chip over Gaga Slaninia. So he showed his pure class there in the finishing touch. His second goal was a curler from outside the 18 against DC United, backstick with his right foot, just perfect finesse. Then he scored a diving header. He had a darting run to the near stick to then draw the 2-1 lead against DC that unfortunately we gave up. But Lucas Arion received a throw in, facing his own goal, turned, whipped in a beautiful ball. There's that connection once again.
Yeah.
And then he scored the first goal in hell is real off of a set piece. Another header, not the biggest guy in the world, but he's getting it done in the air. So I love his goal scoring prowess. And then, without going too deep into details, like his movement off the ball and the stuff that he does off the ball is just as valuable as the goals that he puts in the back of the net. His movement to drop into the midfield and interchange and just find those spaces and free up spaces for his teammates, whether it's to the right, to the left, with either Luis Diaz or Derek Etienne Jr., or just combining and dropping in with Lucas Larian. Like he's creating spaces for his teammates, which is opening up opportunities for them and making them better.
The thing that I love about him is was what you just touched on, right? Is his movement off the ball, movement without the ball at his feet, which I think is what makes most players go from like a good player to a very good player to a class player within just playing soccer in general, right? When you're making these movements that can kind of set you up for the next second, third, fourth pass that eventually leads to the goal, I think that's the thing that will make you excel. And I think that's how, he's already scored like you said, 4 goals in 90 minutes. I think that's the thing that Tati Castellanos did well. I think that's the thing that you see Joseph Martinez do well, Rui Diaz and everything like that, so like that's the piece to his game that, I'm sure I haven't watched as much tape as you have on him, but I think that's something that kind of just immediately stands out to me is what he's going to bring to the squad there. And I mean, the partnership between him and Zelarayan is definitely something that I think is key. I think back to when Rui Diaz and Ladero kind of paired up for the first time on that Sounders run, right? I think back to maybe like 2020 Minnesota, when I know it's not a striker midfielder, but when Kevin Molino and Reynoso kind of had their absolute tear through the MLS Cup playoffs, right? These two feel like they could be some type of pairing that could absolutely just don't even worry about the other 9. Just obviously you have to, but don't even worry about the other 9. That just let these guys go out there, ball out, and you're going to find a result because they're game winners.
Yeah, and what Cucho does is he raises both the floor and the ceiling for this team. Like our floor is so much higher, our ceiling is so much higher. We went from probably being a fringe MLS playoff team to, I've now said it on a couple podcasts, we're going to host a MLS Cup playoff match in Columbus this year. We're going to finish top 4 for sure. But just to touch on Cucho a little bit more, dive a little bit deeper than
Yeah.
I have in the past. One thing that he does is his movement allows us to have more freedom in the attacking third. And Columbus Crew over the past couple seasons, especially post MLS Cup 2020, we had a bunch of injuries last year, missed the playoffs, really had a really down season. Early part of this year was pretty boring. And that was kind of the knock on Caleb Porter's Columbus was, very, it's obviously possession oriented, but it's similar patterns of play, not a
Yeah.
lot of direct stuff going forward. We're dominating possession, but we're not generating high quality chances in those dangerous zones of the field. Right. And I think what Cucho does is him and Lucas Arion, they're putting themselves in those dangerous positions, which then allows those role players to do the same thing. And this season, I think the Columbus Crew, especially lately, have been really good in transition, at least better in transition.
Yeah.
And we've actually a number of the games that we've won this season are when we actually concede the possession. The other team has the majority of the ball, and then we break on the counter. We saw one time against DC, we had a turnover. Well, we caused DC to have a turnover. Lucas Orlan picked his head up, found Cucho upfield. Cucho took a touch and buried it back stick. Like the movement, the speed of the passing for the Columbus Crew, all in all, is just better. And then in
Yeah.
transition, we look like a more dangerous team as well.
Well, I also think that comes from Derek Etienne Jr. having arguably his best season as a professional. Luis Diaz, I think we've seen mixed performances from him, but I think when he's on, right, obviously it just makes the attack that much better. And right now with Cucho, he's going to start occupying spaces or at least getting more attention from defenders. That's going to open up more space for everyone else. So if you do have a Derek Etienne Jr., you have a Nagby, you have a Luis Diaz kind of stepping up to the plate just a little bit more, Cucho's going to draw that out. Maybe he's not scoring every game, but everyone else is going to get their shots as well. So I'm excited for you guys. I do think you guys have the capabilities of hosting a playoff game. I love the bold prediction right now of saying it because you know what? I'm the same exact way. I'll be, rooting till my guys till I die until we start the wheels start falling off, and then I'm the most pessimistic person in the world. That's just how I am. But the other thing that I wanted to mention about Columbus, and I want to chat with you about, is the Aiden Morris. Definitely the tweets that you've been throwing out there that you guys are undefeated when Aiden Morris starts a game.
Yeah, the Columbus Crew are 9 games unbeaten, and in those 9 games, Aiden Morris has started every single game, and he's been phenomenal for Columbus Crew. He was phenomenal in 2020 in the minutes that he did play, and then we saw what he did in MLS Cup 2020.
I was going to say stepping up into the biggest game of his career
It
and
was
just balling out.
Put Nico Ladero in his pocket. I think he still has Nico there, to be honest with you. But then 2021 was just it was a down year for him because he suffered a torn ACL. I've been there. I know how tough it is to recover from that.
Yeah.
And for him to come in, work his tail off in the offseason, get back to 100% and look like 110%, to be honest with you. And granted, our tour went down, but Aiden Morris has taken his opportunity and he has run with it. He's shown his quality. I've compared him to the likes of like a U.S. men's national team, Tyler Adams, who just got his move to Leeds, with the ground coverage, his tenacity, his physicality, and just how he occupies the space in the midfield. Those are 3 things that really stand out to me. One thing that I think he needs to get better in is probably the final pass, final product. He does really good at keeping possession, which is really his role for the Columbus Crew.
Yeah.
As Darlington Nagby can go find the game. Darlington Nagby dictates where the game is played, the speed it's played, all that. And Darlington's just our guy that's out there hunting the ball, trying to get the ball back and create those transition moments. And just his work rate is unbelievable. He's been one of the best young players in MLS all season long.
What I love about him, and I've seen him do this multiple times, and I'm definitely just kind of honing in on one aspect of what he does well, right? Because I think tactically you are way better at picking things out than me. I just hone in on one thing. I'm like, that's awesome. That's what this guy does. Like, let's go. I've seen Aiden Morris track back like on a full-on sprint when the team's on a counter, the other team's on a counter, and he doesn't even go for the tackle to like get a card to like just avoid the goal, whatever. He just slows down the pace of play for the other team so well to allow even just everyone else to catch up, or 1 or 2 other guys to catch up. Like, I love just what he brings to a midfield, because you bring that to any midfield and that's going to transition well, which I think definitely kind of is a positive for Aiden Morris to potentially not be a crew member for his entire career and make that jump to Europe.
And that's exactly what I meant when I said ground coverage. Like he's
Yeah.
able to, if we do screw up in the offensive third and the team's in transition, he's able to work his tail back and at least stop the ball or get stuck in on a tackle or have a tactical foul. His work rate is absolutely second to none. The love that he has for the badge for the team. He's a homegrown and he's doing it for the city. I've seen comparisons to Will Trapp. I played against Will Trapp. They're two completely different players. I could see us comparing Sean Zawatsky, the homegrown from
Hmm.
Georgetown, more so to Will Trapp just because of their distribution. But Aiden Morris has been phenomenal. I had him on the podcast in 2020. For some reason, the Columbus Crew have kind of, they've closed me out of all interviews for whatever reason, but I would love to
Love
have
it.
Aiden back on again, man.
Bro, I mean, it happens, you have the media members who just don't answer your emails anymore. It's the best thing. It's the best thing.
And the one team that I really want to, have players on, the Columbus Crew,
You
my
would think.
beloved,
You would
I get
think.
nothing, but
I mean,
whatever.
if you haven't noticed, I've never spoken to an NYCFC player or person before, but we'll see. We'll see what the future holds
That's crazy.
for both of us. But I want to talk about another team in the Eastern Conference that's had a nice little addition of their own, and so far, I think it's been a total of 2 games played with these guys in Toronto FC. Bernadeschi and Insigne. I mean, I don't know if you watched the Toronto Charlotte match. I'm sure you've seen the highlights. It was maybe the most dominant first half I have seen of any MLS game that I've watched ever, of just what those two alone did. Throw in what Mark Anthony K brought to the team, but I guess overall, what were your initial thoughts of the two Italians coming in, and then I guess you watched that first half and like, holy shit, what that was even more.
So I was on Top Ben 90 podcast last night, the MLS Corner with
Yeah,
Charlotte fans. And so for the first half of that podcast, the guys kind of relished in that terrible first half. And that's really all we spoke about. And I did have an opportunity to only watch that first 45
yeah,
because
that's all you needed to
there,
watch.
there you didn't need to watch anymore, right? But both of those guys, Insigne and Bernadeschi, they're Euro 2020 winners for Italy. Two guys that have played for Napoli and Juventus, amongst other big clubs across Europe. And their talent just was on display in that match against Charlotte. And that's a hell of a way to enter the league. And similar to Cucho, before I talk about their individual performances, like what they really did is they made the role players around them look 10 times better. Michael
Yeah.
Bradley with the brace. When's the last time we saw Michael Bradley with the brace?
Michael
Right?
Bradley dribbling through defenders.
Right, exactly. Jonathan Osorio, even though it was a huge deflection of a
Yeah.
goal, he looked lively, but he's having a career year anyway. So, like, that's only going to drive him to be better.
Yeah.
And then the addition of Mark Anthony K as well, that should be mentioned maybe a tier below Insigne and Bernadeschi, but he's going to be huge to that balance and how that midfield operates as well. And we saw him moving, and there was this really good balance in that midfield. So it made the midfield better. It looked better that way.
Yeah.
And they play that 4-3-3. But oftentimes with those two wingers, it becomes a 4-5-1, and they kind of overloaded Charlotte in the midfield because the thing that I think is most dangerous about Insigne and Bernadeschi is Insigne is a left winger, right? But he plays more so as a pocket winger on that right foot, cutting inside, playing inverted, and combining. We saw multiple like back heels, trick passes, stuff like that when he's playing in those half spaces. And so we saw that quality shine through. He actually had the assist to Michael Bradley, who then dribbled through and finished there. So he's a left winger, but he's popping up in spots that you would think the center attacking mid would pop up in, zone 14. And then Bernadeschi, very similarly, but on that right side, he's a left-footed player. Every time he got the ball, he's cutting in on his left foot. And like, it's predictable, yeah, but these guys are elite players.
But when you're a class
in the
above,
world.
it works. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's predictable, but it doesn't matter. If you have that step, if you have that quality, like, you know what I'm going to do. But, with me cutting inside, then I also have the fullbacks. Christico, another one of Toronto's signings that should be mentioned as well, the left back. In the 45 minutes that I watched, he was flying up and down that left side, which is important. It gives him that width when Insigne comes inside. So very similar to what, like a Derek Etienne Jr. does for the Crew and Pedro Santos gets around. It's the very same thing. And same thing on the right side. Like, the balance in the midfield is better. Both of those guys being able to play inverted as pocket wingers allows the fullbacks to get, to provide the width. And then Jimenez, who they signed in the offseason, the Spaniard, he's been really good too. So
without, a class wingers around them, add class wingers, and he's going to bang in goals.
Exactly. And it's crazy to me that MLS is now signing these players. It's crazy. I love it.
No, I love it, right? Because it's crazy that in just a few weeks we've had Insigne, Bernardeschi, Bale, Chiellini, Cucho. I mean, not that I can say Cucho pre MLS is the same resume as those four, but
Right.
it's the same type of addition, right? Like an EPL type player, a higher league type player coming to the league. It's absolutely insane. I only hope it's gonna continue to happen like this for smaller market teams as well.
So one more thing I will
Yeah.
add, when I watched the Charlotte game, I think Charlotte, who had just come off of that Chelsea game in the midweek when they won the PK shootout, and I say
Yeah.
won with air quotes, I think that was an emotional game for them. It was kind of a game that they, like I said, air quotes, won, and it felt like a World Cup victory or something for them, Champions League victory. And then they turn around, and I think it was just kind of a lackadaisical performance from a Charlotte FC team, and they didn't look hungry. They didn't really put pressure. They respected Bernadeschi and Insigne, which obviously you have to, but
Yeah.
I think they may have respected them too much. And I say that because I watched the Canadian Championships last night, and I saw what Vancouver did, and they were pressing everything. They were first to 50-50s. I mean, there was no loose ball that they weren't winning, and they put pressure on. They respected those two guys, but their intensity was just a different level than what Charlotte was able to bring to that game.
I will also say about the Canadian Championship final, and I'm not, this is not an original thought. It's been out there from other MLS pundits. Mark Anthony Kaye was not out on that field, was not in the 18 at all, right?
No.
You add in Mark Anthony Kaye, who was connecting so many passes between Azorio, Bradley, Insigne, Bernadeschi. Like it felt like he was the most involved player in that Charlotte game. You didn't have him in a
Right.
final to send them to CCL. I was pissed off because I wanted to see Bernadeschi and Insigne in a CCL, just competition in general. But
Hell yeah.
well, maybe we'll get it in 2 years. I don't know. But my final question about Toronto, and you can give me a short answer here. Are they hosting a Eastern Conference playoff game?
Simply put, no. I don't think they are. I actually have the table pulled up right now. What do they sit?
It's a climb.
Second
It's a
to
climb.
last on 22 points. Not 22 points. That's how many games they've played. I'm sorry. But they do have 22 points. So 1 point per game
Point a
for
game.
them
There you go.
to make the playoffs right now. So they're 6 points behind Cincinnati. So what was your question?
Are they going to host the playoff
Oh,
game?
no, absolutely not. Short answer, no. Will they make the playoffs? I think they're going to have something to say on decision day. I think it's going to be tight, but I think they will get that done. I think we will see them in the playoffs.
I mean,
They didn't set up Insigne and Bernadeschi to do it, but from
yeah.
what I've seen against Charlotte, like I'm optimistic.
I think Don Garber would be remiss if he didn't have his two, prized
Yeah.
Italians in the playoffs. But it is what it is. I think one team that you mentioned a little bit earlier on that's going through their own little rebuild, rebrand is Wayne Rooney's DC United, or DC United under the new Wayne Rooney era. We've seen your former striker Miguel Berry head over. Ravel Morrison is getting back with Wayne Rooney during his time with Derby, now joining the DC squad. And today's signing of a DP and Victor Paulsen, the Icelandic international. I guess, do you have, and I'm not even saying for this season, because I think this season is a complete wash for DC. Do you have hope and faith that this, next 2 years for DC could be, I guess, a managerial version of what Wayne Rooney brought as a player to DC?
I hope so. And so over the past 2 years, DC has kind of taken the Red Bull approach. They're one of the most high pressing teams in the league. And I don't think that's what Wayne Rooney wants to do.
No.
That's not what he did at Derby County, right? Very possession oriented coach, kind of gets in transition, but they're not a high pressing team, right? Well, they won't be under Wayne Rooney, I don't think. So it'll be interesting for me to see the guys that he brings in. So you mentioned Ravel Morrison, who played under him when he was at Derby County, and their DP signing today. I'm blanking on his name, but it seems like Wayne Rooney's already having a say in the players that he wants to bring in that are going to play his style. And a question that I've asked previously is like, when you bring in a new coach, how does that affect? Does the new coach just roll with the style and the players that he has, or do they go out and get players that fit the coach's style? And I think that's going to be how Wayne Rooney approaches this. It's not going to turn around this year. There's no shot.
No.
But I think 2023 might be a little bit different when he has. So This is his first transfer window. He's getting a half transfer window, right? It's
Yeah.
almost over. We got a week left. So we'll see what else they can get across the line, if anything. And then in the offseason, they're going to have a lot of decisions. Who do we keep? How big of a rebuild is this going to be? And where do we need to improve? And I think Wayne Rooney will pull the right strings. He has all the connections in the world, more connections than arguably any coach in this league. So we'll see. I think there is some turnaround in 2023. How drastic that is, I don't know. They won't be dead last with Wayne Rooney as manager, but I'm really not sure. So I will say we'll see.
I am hoping that 2023 at least is a little bit of a turnaround year for them, mainly because, the All-Star game is going to be at Audi Field in DC. I like to see the team that's hosting the All-Star game have a little bit of success, right? So you get some of their players in there and there's a little bit of fanfare around the town and the stadium and the fans and everything like that. I'm hoping, fingers crossed. I don't know if Wayne Rooney is going to be that guy, to be honest. I think everyone's praising him over a shitty situation he was in with Derby, and he did a fantastic job being down points and everything like that. But I don't know if he did this amazing job that I'm like, DC United, who have had, 3 head coaches in the past 2 years, is this is going to be the next one to fix it. I don't think so. But that's just my thoughts.
Wifey didn't want to come with him. Wifey's staying back in London or England, wherever she's at. She's not coming. So
how's that going to go?
I think that's interesting. So we saw how Reynoso was last year and the beginning of this year without his wife and family. He was struggling, and then they came, and then he's been lighting the league on fire. Is that going to be the same effect on Wayne Rooney? I don't know. But hey, if they sign Lucho Acosta, they might win 2023 MLS Cup.
Lucha is coming back. Honestly, it would be pretty funny if Wayne Rooney is like, all the gam, I want Lucho back on this squad pulling the strings. I would love it.
I'm sure he's texted him, called him, WhatsApped him, whatever. I'm sure there's been a communication there.
Bro, I'm back. Let's hook up. I love it. Final question for you, Blake, and then I'll let you go enjoy the rest of your night, let you watch the rest of this Open Cup match. Biggest surprising, either in a good way or bad way. I'm a natural pessimist, so I will always go bad way. Biggest surprising team so far, about halfway through the 2022 season.
The biggest surprise. So I think the biggest disappointment, I'll start opposite of what you're saying. Orlando hasn't won more than 2 games in a row all season. They've been so inconsistent. I can't deal with. But
if they win an Open Cup,
we'll see. My biggest surprise, I want to say Austin FC in year 2. And I might regret saying that because I don't really know how surprised I am. I almost just said RSL, but they've won like 1 game in the last 8, and they look
but they're still looking good for
top 4 in the East. But I think the biggest surprise for me, it's a year 2 expansion side, Austin FC. Like, they went out and signed Driussi in the summer of 2021, and the team was already dead in the water at that point.
Yeah,
and they come out this year, and they just. Cecilio Dominguez didn't work out. They just released him. He was picked up by a Liga MX's team today. And they brought in Maxi Arruti, who's been phenomenal. They're getting the best out of Ethan Finley, who's been doing really, really good.
Diego Fagundes
has been phenomenal for them. Danny Pereira in the middle has been really, really good as well. They shored up some of their defense. They've had some goalkeeper issues that we saw last weekend, but that's backup goalkeeper issues.
Yeah.
But they scored the most goals in the league as a second-year expansion side. Like, outside of maybe LAFC and Atlanta United, like, we haven't really seen expansion sides do something like this. Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with what Sebastian Driussi is doing, pulling the strings for Austin FC. And their chemistry, their South American chemistry that they have on that team between Driussi, Arruti, Fagundes, all those guys is just so fun to see. And the job that Josh Wolf has done.
Yeah.
And his nice tucked in green polo that he wears on a weekly basis. Just like I said, getting the best out of some role players like an Ethan Finley and these guys. Yeah. And even some rookies. Kip Keller filled in at the beginning of the season and played some pretty decent minutes. So Austin FC has been a pleasant surprise. I say surprise lightly because now that I've seen it, I'm like, I could get used to this.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say they're definitely a surprise. I did not have faith in them coming into this season overall. I think I definitely question Josh Wolf, whether that's, now looking back at it of being like, you're an idiot, Tom, because look at what Josh Wolf has done with also they've had their own set of injuries, obviously, right? Like Cecilio Dominguez, like that whole issue is now it's fixed, but you've had that sitting on your roster for more than half the season. I definitely say Austin FC is a surprise in a good way. I'm glad that they are doing well because we saw what they did off the field last year, the fans, the support, the love that they got. Now you're seeing it on the field, right? I don't think, I didn't think that second place in the Western Conference, right? I think they're in second place right now in the Western Conference was going to be realistic, but here they are. And I think they have the ability to beat many teams in Major League Soccer, but they also have the ability to be beaten. Obviously, we saw that against the Red Bulls last week, but I think they're really talented. And I think once Josh Wolf can get some of these maybe new signings into the system a little bit and you get the best out of some of these guys, you get some players back from injury, I think Austin could be an issue, even for the likes of LAFC.
Yeah, I think so too. And even though they did just lose 4-3 to the New York Red Bulls, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, but that's around this time.
We'll timestamp it. It's fine. It's all good.
Yeah. So even though they lost 4-3 to the New York Red Bulls, like the press absolutely killed them, but then they found a way to just score 3 awesome goals. And that's just something that they do. They score really good goals. They play really freely in the attacking third. And like I said, just that chemistry and the freedom of play and how fun they are. Like, I have a couple teams in the league that I watch on a weekly basis. Obviously, I watch my Columbus Crew. I watch the Philadelphia Union. I really like what they do, even though they're a non-traditional team, just because they don't have possession. Austin FC is high up there on my list.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally fair because they play a pretty style of soccer, even though, some of the names aren't the flashiest, even though, you have John Gallagher playing left back, but he's killing it and he's doing well, right? So
exactly, role players. Josh Wolf is somehow bringing this out of them. And it's cool for me. I really like them because, Josh Wolf was an assistant for Columbus Crew under Greg Berhalter for a while. So he plays that Berhalter ball possession-oriented style. They're going to die by that possession. And we saw that against the Red Bulls, but it's been fun. They've played some liquid football at times.
I call those role players MLSers because you need a good core of MLSers to win an MLS Cup.
We've seen roster building become more and more important with LAFC, Toronto, but regardless of those big signings and how they bring them in and how they pull those strings, each of those teams and every team around the league has a core of MLS guys that are not only leaders in the locker room, but they understand how this league works and they have the talent to to get results, and they can drive the team forward, and they are a very important part of every team in this league.
Well, Blake, I want to thank you, man, for coming on. Like I said, this podcast was well overdue, and we're going to be talking again. I'm going to have you back on again. We're going to chat everything and anything, and I can promise you that. Where can the listeners find the MLS Gone Wild podcast and social media as well?
So we'll start with social, mainly Twitter, Instagram as well, just at MLS Gone Wild. Come check out my weekly MLS power rankings. They're somewhat controversial, but probably not more controversial than the main MLS pundits. And then follow me on Instagram. Most of my posts there are just kind of the visuals for my interviews and my content that I put out. And then to listen to the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, MLS Gone Wild, search it, got player interviews, analytics, you name it, it's there. Somehow I've been doing this for 2.5 years and we're only at episode like 87. I'm like, how am I not at 100 yet? Because I feel like I do this on a weekly, but whatever, guys, go listen to MLS Gone Wild, wherever you listen. If you like it, rate, subscribe, review, all those good things.
Make sure you go check Blake out. It's a fantastic podcast. It's on my weekly listens for sure. It'll be on your weekly listens as well if you're an MLS fan, especially a Crew fan, because you have your Crew talk in there. But Blake, thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time.
Of course, Tom. Thanks, man.